Hello. Excuse me. Morning. It's probably about 6 o'clock in the morning. Second video. I'm going to cover training. Now I don't run anything particularly fancy. I run a 3-on-1-off split, divided down into chest, tries, hamstrings, back, shoulders, calves, quads and biceps. The reason I split my legs over 3 workouts is, to be quite honest, I just can't handle doing them all in one hit. Now, I train everything twice a week, but I do limit the number of sets that I do. So, major body parts, chest, back, such like, we'll get about 15-16 sets split over 3 exercises. Minors, biceps, triceps, anywhere between 6 and 10 split over 1 to 2 exercises. Excuse me. Now, the basic format is first set 12 reps, second set 10 reps, then 8, then 6. The 6 rep set is my heaviest, and to complete and total absolute failure. You have to excuse me, the cat is climbing all over me this morning. Once I've done that heavy failure set, I'll then do a drop the weight by about 40% and rep out as much as I can. But again, this goes to failure. And we're not talking just, I think I can't get another one. We're talking complete and utter, total, absolute, shaking like a shiting dog, I can't move this anymore failure. Not so bad on chest and biceps, but gets a little bit harder when you start looking at legs. Now, I've run high volume, and I don't mind it at all. In fact, I grow quite well with it. But, hello. But what I found is that I used to get bored towards the end of the workout and lose a sort of focus and intensity. Now, I like to really feel what I'm doing. Even though I train heavy and I train hard, I really like to feel the muscle load. And if I lose that, I lose interest in the workout. So for me, I favour the lower volume per workout, but more frequent workouts. So the total volume over a 7-day period is about the same. And the only major difference is that I actually use more weight overall. So can't be a bad thing there either. I do tend to periodise my training, but it's not a set format. It'll be more instinctive. And I'll change, and I do quite a lot of TUT work, time under tension, where I'll do a 5-second positive and a 5-second negative. The rep format's the same, and I still push the weight as heavy as I can, but the rep pace is dramatically slowed down. I find this really helps with developing mind-muscle connection, and it gives you time to tweak and develop your movement within each exercise to get the optimum stimulus to the target muscle that you want to hit. At the end of the day, it's not about the weight you move, it's about how you stress the muscle you're trying to work. The weight is just a tool in which to do that, as well as rep speed and various other things. And that's it really. I mean, it's not particularly fancy. It's very old school, balls to the wall style training, very aggressive. Everything you got goes in those 2 heavy sets. And normally, I am shot to bits at the end of every workout. Doesn't matter what it is I do, I am a wreck when I've finished. I'm not opposed to throwing in extra rest days if I feel I need them. Now, I'm not a massive believer in overtraining. There's a difference, I think, between overtraining and under-recovery. I think to physically overtrain is an incredibly difficult thing to do. However, you can fail to get adequate rest, adequate nutrition. Excuse me. So, you look at people, we all take the mickey out of them, well, anyone train seriously take the mickey out of them, disco boys, bicep boys, when you ever call them, and all they do is come in and train biceps and chest, they don't do anything else. Yet, they've all got good chests and they've all got good biceps, and yet they're training those body parts 3 times a week, sometimes more. Diets are usually poor, party all weekend. So there must be something in it. And I really do believe that 95% of people that train would benefit from stopping fannying about and just picking a weight up and giving it everything they've got. It seems to me, I mean, I took a 12-year break out of this sport, and it seems to me that people just don't train hard anymore. 12, 15 years ago, you went in a bodybuilding gym and everybody was busting their balls. Now you go in the gym now, and maybe 5% are. And then the morning, I can't progress, I can't do this. We seem to become so reliant on the drugs and have forgotten that in the first place to stimulate growth, we need to stimulate the muscle. And the only way we can do that is to train and train hard. Now, be that hard through pace, through intensity techniques like drop sets or whatever it may be, through pure weight. Doesn't make no difference as long as you stimulate and you train hard. There's lots of different ways to stimulate your muscle growth, but you've got to find something that you enjoy and that you're comfortable with. Otherwise, you're not going to stick at it. You're not going to push hard at it, and you're not going to challenge yourself. Now, I absolutely love me against the weights, trying to squeeze out that extra rep, trying to beat what I did the last time, constantly pushing for more. It's the way I love to train, and it gives me a definite benchmark for improvement. While if I'm doing high volume, there's so many factors in there, it's difficult to ascertain if I'm improving or not, because there's so many reps, there's so many sets, there's so many variables that can mean that when I get to my heaviest set, I may have done a little bit more on the ones before, etc. And I find it difficult to gauge progress. So I very much prefer, not quite Dorian, high intensity, but in there, shift some weight, give it all I've got and get out. And it's as simple as that. I'm not a big user of drop sets or force reps, but I do throw them in from time to time, particularly if either my heavy set has gone too heavy and I don't feel I've got enough out of it. Sometimes it's instigated by my training partner, but most of the time it's just real balls to the wall, complete and utter total failure, and maybe 1 force reps. Certain body parts I'll bring in negatives, back in particular. I feel that back needs to overload. It's such a complex mass of muscles, and it's not the easiest one to work, that quite often overload does help growth dramatically. I'm a bit of a form Nazi and full range. Don't believe in all this partial bullshit. Muscle was designed to move from point A to point B, so that's what it fucking does. Part rep here, part rep there. I can understand partials on compound movements, because you're trying to minimise the involvement of supporting muscles like bench press, your chest and triceps, the upper end of the movement. But at the same time, if you've got a decent focus and a decent link with a muscle, you can direct it where you want it. I'm also a big believer in effective warm-ups. I'm not one that does my warm-up sets just throwing reps here, there, and there. They're very slow, very controlled, very focused. And normally after a warm-up set, I'm already feeling pain and discomfort in the muscle I'm trying to train. I think a lot of this, FST and also, and I'm not saying it doesn't work, but sometimes I think we get lost in the fanciness when really we should just get down to the old school, pick a weight up and move it as many times as you can. It is that simple, but keep it in good form. Injuries come through poor form. Now, another thing, and I've had this argument with lots of people. Not everybody agrees, and I understand that. There's more than one way to skin a cat. But a lot of people incorporate this explosive concentric movement and slow eccentric movement. Now, what I've found is, unless you are very, very good and very, very in tune with your body, when you drive on a concentric movement, you tend to load your skeletal frame, not the muscularity of your body. The negative, no problem, under control. Now, from the studies I've seen, the most muscle fibre recruitment is done under explosive concentric movement. However, it's not sustained. And because the momentum factor that comes in, that muscle fibre soon dissipates. While a controlled, powered rep keeps it constant. The other studies I've seen also show that roughly a 1 to 2 second concentric with a 5 second negative is optimum for muscle size. And even the slower stuff will still produce very good results in growth as long as you can move enough weight to stimulate growth at the same time. Obviously, the problem with slower work is that weight reduces and sometimes you just cannot get the load heavy enough. The thing is, with most people, when they explode from a relaxed or untense position. This puts a massive strain on tendons and attachments and then generally transfers loads to skeleton. It's not what you want. You want the stress in the muscle. So I'm a great believer in controlled but powered positive movement. And then controlled negative movement. My pace tends to be somewhere in the region of 2-3, 2-2, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. That does vary, and certainly on exercises where it's difficult to lock in to push, rowing movements and such like that, there may be a bit of swing, there may be a bit of explosive in that. But in general, all my reps are controlled form. I mean, you'll see this when training videos go up in a month or so's time. But I'm not one for throwing weight around for the sake of it. And when it comes to stuff like biceps and such like, I'm very strict. I don't use a lot of weight. And I've built over 23-inch arms, so I must be doing something right. This is the other thing as well. I'm a right one for little tweaks and twitches and techniques to intensify movements, little hand movements, little twists here, there. Very focused on elbow position within certain movements, all just to increase the intensity and the focus of what I'm trying to do. When I train, I put everything into making that set as effective and as hard as possible. I don't look for ways to make it easier, I always look for ways to make it harder. Actual exercises, no real fixed format. Because I train everything twice a week, what I'll tend to do is for back, I'll focus on what would be traditionally width movements, pull downs, in one workout with a couple of, maybe one rowing movement in, then the following workout would be 2 rowing movements and 1 pull down movement, though I'll throw partial deads in. Don't do full deads. Don't rate them at all. Not for putting size on. I know not in a split program. If you're doing an upper lower body split or an all over body workout, great exercise. But if you're doing a divisional split, there's too much crossover, there's too much glute activation, too much hamstring and quad activation in a deadlift to put it in on back day. And then if you put it on a leg day, there's too much back activation. So where do you put it? So I do partials, my own spin on Dorian's version. And I've got a couple of weird exercises that I do that I've made up myself, which again, I'll come into them when we do the training vids. But the same with chest, I'll focus upper predominantly on one workout and then mid to lower on the other workout. I don't do decline, but that's more a personal thing. I just don't get on with the movement at all. I just don't find it works for me. And I'll rotate exercises around quite freely. I'm not set and fixed in one pattern. This may change. At the moment, a lot of it's generated around the fact that I've got the shoulder injury, so I'm having to be a bit creative about how I affect and hit things. Hopefully that's on the mend, and when this all kicks off, should be up and ready to go. If not, we'll just have to see what the drugs coming in will do to help it. But in general, that's basically it. It's a mix, there's a structure there, but there is quite a lot of instinction in there as well, and I'll swap and change things as I feel it works. And that's it really. Just lift heavy weights, train hard.